So this is the crazy story of who's behind the mess that is the Trump tariffs that are affecting the entire world and throwing us into disarray with stock markets declining in pretty much every country that's affected by it. So the guy behind this is a guy named Peter Navarro. Now, who is Peter Navarro? Well, this is absolutely fascinating. Michael McFall posted, "This is just crazy," and he's talking about this. Now, I'm not a big fan of Rachel Maddow, but listen to what Rachel Maddow has to say about Ron Vera, which is an anagram of Navarro. That's Peter Navarro. Listen to this.
In all of his books, Peter Navarro has cited an economics expert to justify his views. And the economics expert he cites is somebody named Ron Vera, V-A-R-A, Ron Vera. When Trump won the presidency and entered the White House, this Ron Vera started circulating a memo around Washington in support of Trump using tariffs in trade policy. According to the New York Times, the memo had been, quote, sent from an email address purportedly belonging to Ron Vera. At one point, Ron Vera wrote in the memo that Trump could, quote, ride the tariffs to victory. The problem is Ron Vera doesn't exist. He never has.
Ron Vera doesn't exist. What's he doing sending out memos? You'll see in a moment.
The expert that Peter Navarro has long cited to explain why he's so gung-ho on tariffs, this person, Ron Vera, is a made-up person. He is a fictional person.
I told you this was going to be a strange story. It's a strange story.
Peter Navarro invented Ron Vera as his expert source so he could quote this expert source over and over and over again in his crackpot books. Who is Ron Vera? Ron Vera is an anagram of Navarro, which is his last name.
That is some crazy stuff. And he's citing him in his books. I'll show you that in just a moment.
But that really is how the Trump administration crafted its tariff policy. That's where Trump came up with the tariff idea. Circulating a fake memo from a fake person with a fake email address in order to make it look like this was a serious issue being debated by real experts. That is the intellectual basis on which Donald Trump today wiped $6 trillion of wealth out of existence.
And this was from day before yesterday. So that's, or I guess it would have been Friday. So that's where she's citing that number. And the stock markets are down today as well.
And crashed America's markets and brought America and the world to the brink of a self-inflicted, on-purpose, global Great Depression along the lines of what we had in 2008 and what the pandemic inflicted upon us in 2020.
Okay, so that's a little bit much, but it was purely user error. It's not fundamentals with the market. It is pure, like none of this had to happen. So, okay, so let's start looking at this. This is Peter Navarro. He's the assistant to the president, director of trade, manufacturing policy during the Trump administration. He's an American economist. We'll talk about his profile here in Wikipedia. Peter Kent Navarro is an American economist who's currently the senior counselor for trade and manufacturing to U.S. President Donald Trump. He previously served in the Trump administration, first as the director of the White House National Trade Council, then as director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy. Navarro is a professor emeritus of economics and public policy at the Paul Marenghi School of Business at the University of California, Irvine. Navarro ran unsuccessfully for office in San Diego, California 5 times. In January 2017, he joined the first Trump administration as an advisor on trade. As a senior administration official, Navarro encouraged President Trump to implement protectionist trade policies. He was a key official behind the China-United States trade war. So that's who he is. Yeah, let's read a little bit more about him. He's all over the map in his political beliefs. I'll show you this in just a moment. He had a contempt for Congress conviction and a prison stay in February 9th, 2022. The House Select Committee on January 6th subpoenaed Navarro to provide documents and testimony. He refused to sign them, ignored both subpoenas. He made media appearances to defend his behavior in the press. He claimed that Trump was asserting executive privilege on his behalf, so he was exempt from the subpoenas. Although the fact the acting president Joe Biden had had possessed sole discretion to assert executive privilege since the end of the Trump administration and had not done so on Navarro's behalf. Ultimately, Navarro ignored all the requirements of subpoenas without effectively asserting any legal cognizable privilege or exemption. On April 6, the House of Representatives voted to hold Navarro and Dan Scavino in contempt for their refusals to testify before the House Select Committee on the basis of executive privilege claims. On June 2nd, 2022, a grand jury impaneled the United States District Court for the District of Columbia indicted Navarro on 2 counts of contempt of Congress. Navarro was arrested by deputy U.S. Marshals at Reagan National Airport, and he was about to board a plane to Nashville. Navarro spent March 19th to July 17th incarcerated at the Elderly Prisoner Unit of U.S. Federal Penitentiary. Navarro was released on July 17, 2024. Within hours of being released from prison, Navarro gave a primetime speech endorsing Trump for a second term at the 2024 Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, lest you just think, well, that's the Republican that he is. He's like that. No, he's all over the map politically. Navarro rejoined the Democratic Party in 1994, remained a Democrat during each of his subsequent political campaigns. In 1996, while he was running for Congress, Navarro was endorsed by then First Lady Hillary Clinton and spoke at the 1996 Democrat Convention, saying, "I'm proud to be carrying a Clinton-Gore banner." He positioned himself as a strong environmentalist and a progressive on social issues such as choice, gay rights, and religious freedom. During the 2016 presidential election, Navarro described himself as a Reagan Democrat, a Trump Democrat, abandoned by my party. Despite this, Navarro was critical of Ronald Reagan's defense spending and called the GOP growth during the administration a failure of Reaganomics. During the early stage of the Trump administration, Navarro was still known to be a Democrat, but by February of 2018, he again re-registered as a Republican. Now, I showed you that to say, like, he's just all over the map, this guy. Okay. Now, here's his book, Seeds of Destruction, Why the Path to Economic... okay, so this is one of his books, and in this, he cites this guy named Ron Vera. Quote, and it's in quotes, "When you build a new housing subdivision, you're providing jobs for a few months. When you build a new factory, you provide jobs for years." He's citing Ron Vera. But Ron Vera doesn't actually exist, and that's in one of his books. Here's another book, Always a Winner, Finding Your Competitive Advantage. Let's do this in real time. Let's look up RONVARA and type that in, and here we are. Ron Vera, and his variation is a variation of an old aphorism aptly captures the value of learning and how to become your own business cycle forecaster. And he's talking about Ron Vera. A recession can do more for damage to your organization than any 10 competitors. That's a lesson I both regularly teach to my executive MBA students and preach to corporate audiences. Like, he's quoting Ron Vera here. Ron Vera, in his book 90 Days to Write, and his book 90 Days to Write, A Decade to Prepare For, and he's going on with Ron Vera, and you see it in the citations. It's crazy. He's citing this. Like, if you did this in one of my papers, I would fail you for plagiarism, for making up a source, and it's just, like, he's done this before. Now, here's an NPR article. White House advisor Peter Navarro calls fictional alter ego an inside joke. The character, Ron Vera, appears in Navarro's 2011 book Death by China, offering dire warnings about Chinese imports. Ron Vera is an anagram of Navarro, said Tom Bartlett, a journalist who exposed the ruse in the Chronicle of Higher Education. Navarro, who directs the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, defended the fabrication as a whimsical device. At no time was the character used improperly as a fact source. Well, I just showed you the fact sources that he seemed to claim, and he put it in quotes. He wrote in an email, "It's just a fun device." Again, I would fail you for plagiarism if you did that, because this is making up references. It's not real scholarship. Okay. Now, the real trick is that who you put in place is going to influence the policy. This is the laws of the public policy process by the Leadership Institute. Number 26 is instructive. Personnel is policy. And because this guy is in charge of the policy on tariffs, that's why we're seeing it right now, because Trump is really listening to him. Now, he also has clashed with Elon Musk over the weekend. Wow, Elon is attacking Trump's trade policy advisor, Peter Navarro, on the tariffs. Well, Musk lost $18 billion on Tesla stock this week alone. And so let's see what he has to say. Trump's advisor, Navarro, dismisses Musk as a car assembler after tariff comments. Like, that's all he is. He's not really anything. Okay, but Musk actually is building something here, and he's a professor emeritus who kind of should know better. It's really weird to watch this play out. Peter Navarro just completely dismissed Elon Musk's problems on national TV just for not wanting his companies to simultaneously go bankrupt from Trump's psychotic decisions. Let's watch this.
Can we go back to Elon Musk for a second? Because I'm glad that you brought that up. He also took a shot at you personally on X, and he's going against the administration with respect to the tariff policy. The president has said in the coming months he may leave the administration. Peter, is there a rift internally?
No, I mean, Elon, when he's in his Doge lane is great, but we understand what's going on here. We just have to understand. Elon sells cars, and he's in Texas assembling cars that have big parts of that car from Mexico, China. The batteries come from Japan or China. The electronics come from Taiwan. And he's simply protecting his own interests, as any business person would do. We're more concerned about Detroit building Cadillacs with American engines. And that's what this is all about. So it's fine. There's no riff here. Look, Elon.
Okay, so that's part of the internal fighting within the administration. But it's just a weird story that this guy who cites somebody he made up and circulates that around Washington. He's the guy behind the tariffs that are shaking the world, literally shaking the world right now. All right, my friends, tell me what you thought about this. Put it in the comments below. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.